So today I'm looking at Project Future, developed for the ZX Spectrum and Amstrad CPC range of computers in 1985 by Dominic Wood and published by Micromania. This cassette I'm holding is my original Spectrum copy, purchased from Software Emporium in Norwich, back in the time when dedicated and independent software shops existed on every other street corner. Good times. So, delving in, your mission is to teleport aboard and activate the self-destruct system of the Dreaded SS Future. The SS Future is a huge labyrinth of a spaceship. Now, either that's a very badly punned spelling of labyrinth, indicating it's a very laborious maze, or it's very bad spelling, probably the latter. And also, while we're being pedantic, it doesn't actually take place in a labyrinth at all. A labyrinth has no dead ends. This game is in a maze which has lots of dead ends. So, covering 256 screens of the most amazing high resolution graphics yet seen on a Spectrum, which is debatable. On the inside, there's some bog standard loading and control instructions, along with the repeated goal of the game, which is to find 8 destruct codes so you can activate the self-destruct system. Features include amazing animation, sound effects / tunes, incredible graphic spaceship, space cadet, blah blah blah. Let's crack on. So I'll be using a Sinclair ZX Spectrum 128K Plus to test the game, the last of the true Sinclair Spectrums before Alan Sugar waded in and Amstrad bought Sinclair out, coupled with a Dixon's Slimline cassette player, which matches quite nicely, not that makes any difference whatsoever. Let's play. So here we are at the Spectrum tape loading screen, the 128K version, and prepare to be graced with the finest sound in computing history. A Spectrum loading. You can't beat it. You cannot beat that sound. Something about the baud rate which makes it just perfect. Either that or I'm severely biased. Probably the latter. To most people it probably sounds like a bag of shit. So there, as you can expect, we have a tape loading error. But on subsequent tries and fiddling around with the volume, it worked. So after the music rather reminiscent of a popular 70s and 80s film franchise, we're taken into the game. And what a game it is. So, Project Future was well received critically in the mid-80s. Crash magazine awarded it a crash smash with an overall score of 90%, and it's easy to see why, as it's still a highly playable game even today. There's something about the gameplay that makes you want to keep going, just to keep searching for that extra code. The tight responsive controls help hugely, and although the collision detection is sometimes a little on the iffy side, it doesn't detach from the overall playability. Crash compared it to Saberwolf in space, which is a pretty good comparison in many regards. They also noted that there was no reason given for destroying the ship, which is a good point, although in the 80s it was pretty commonplace for most games not to have a fulfilled accompanying story. Stories were usually written after the game had been thrown together at the last minute. It's a bit disappointing there's no music in the 128k mode, but then given the game was released in 1985, the same year as the 128k, it was clearly written without that in mind. One thing to note is the enjoyment of the game is increased by teleportation devices dotted around, and power-ups including a protective suit and a little buggy you can jump in whenever you spot one. Although it does have the habit of disappearing into thin air after a while, which is not ideal for a transportation device. One thing that is apparent is the vastness of the game. At 256 fairly similar looking screens and no built-in mapping, as it was the 80s after all, and there was very limited memory, you're left to your own devices to scroll out a map. But given the game's frantic pace, it's not really a doable option. Your best option is to tear about, shoot whatever you can see, and get the hell out of there when you're done. That, however, is easier said than done, as it's quite a tricky game. As for Micromania, the publisher, they had published a number of good games before Project Future, including Pengy in 1983 and Invasion Force in 84. Sadly, the publisher disappeared in late 85, in part thanks to the collapse of software distributor Tiger. So, it's not one of the best known games, but it is a good one, and there was even a 2008 attempt to remake the game in HD, which is worth checking out. It lives on.
I live on a moon far away.